Fellow nerds, we are talking Loki season 2 finale. Well, let's face it, Loki series finale.
Yep.
Probably.
And normally I would be extremely upset that this series is over because it is my favorite series, favorite Disney Plus MCU series. I think it has been absolutely outstanding. But with the way
Absolutely outstanding.
Absolutely.
they perfectly landed that finale, I can't be too mad. And I'm
Keith,
perfect timing, Thunder Walker.
I was just so happy. Like I was a bit sad the way that they tied everything up, but at the same time, I was kind of sitting there like, yeah, but not your status quo was right. We were so
Yep.
right. We pretty much guessed all of this. We nailed our theories on this one.
Like
And I
we
don't know if
always
that's
do.
because we've watched so many of these things that like our brains are now hardwired to kind of know the direction that they're going to take these things.
Well, I think they just did a good job of setting these things all up. You know, it doesn't have to be a big twist and shock everybody to be the right ending. And the way they kind of laid this whole series out was leading to this inevitably. And it worked out in the way they handled it. I mean, that final scene when you saw Loki going through and just pulling all the time strands and pulling them in, basically to, I can't remember, it's the tree of the nine realms.
Dangerous Hill.
The tree of life.
Yep. I was
Or the
like,
world tree, I'm sorry.
the world tree, yeah. I'm like, that was too perfect of an ending. And all I could think about, and yes, okay, we did get that wrong, Carrie. We did say Loki would go back to his bad guy, but I thought this was handled better because instead of
Actually,
kind of,
I don't remember us saying that, and unless you have proof, then we didn't say it. So there.
but the way they handled this was so much better because instead of kind of reverting back and kind of being that gray character, you know, he is doing this all for, you know, not only his friends at the TVA, but all of his, you know, fellow Asgardians, pretty much everybody
This.
everywhere.
This is character development.
Yes.
This was done so well. He finally, like, I mean, it was so good. People were worried. People were worried that they were trying to fast track character development when they brought us, Loki from the first Avengers movie. Like, oh, this is not going to be good. It's going to be terrible. I actually think it was better seeing him develop throughout these two seasons, even more than watching him slowly, kind of, sort of change in the course of his movie appearances, where it's almost you could almost argue that he didn't really change at the end when Thanos killed him, because even at the end he had taken the Tesseract and Thor just looked so disappointed, like, oh brother.
And I just want to, you know, Carrie said it was perfection. It was an I Am Iron Man epic, incredible victory by Marvel to prove they still got it.
Yeah.
100% true.
Yeah, and I just wonder, like, my wonder is if he reached this point too soon. Like you were saying, he was going to be the god of stories at the end of Secret Wars. That's what you were saying on your prediction. Now that this happened, what does that do to Kang, and what does that do to Loki? Does this lead into the Kang dynasty?
I 100% think it does. What is the Council of Cross Time King? Let me re-say that. What is the Council of Cross Time Kings going to do when they see that the entire multiverse is being shaped and basically managed by Loki? They're not going to be too happy about it.
Not one of them.
I think that's going to get them riled and stirred up, and I think that'll kind of finally kick the multiversal saga into gear.
Now, do you all remember and this is a bit of a one-off prediction. I don't know if you do remember this. Do you remember when I said I had a prediction and it was based on that game Persona 3?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, this was it. So if you recall, at the end of Persona 3, the main character does the same thing. He becomes the thing that basically holds back the destruction that would have ended the world, and he stays there for eternity. He turns himself essentially into a statue to hold these gates closed. And Loki is essentially stuck in this throne, holding all the timelines. I don't personally, and I could be wrong, but I don't see him leaving that throne. I think this is his fate, you know? This is it for him.
Yep, I agree.
It's a noble fate. It's a sacrifice, but this is now his throne.
That was his sacrifice. He has to be alone. He has to become what he feared in order to save the universe.
His biggest fear, as we know from season 1
alone.
with Sif, was saying you'll always be alone. And he had to relive that because that was his biggest fear. And I love too that his final line was like, for you, for all of us, which is the exact same thing he told Odin in the first Thor movie. They really brought this full circle with this character, and just, I didn't get a chance to watch the episode a second time this weekend, but I can't wait to see it again because I was really, this reminded me there was no talking when this was going on, and he was walking and pulling all the strands and using his magic to kind of bring him back to life, because we know when the loom exploded, it was going to destroy all those branching timelines. He was using his magic. No talking, and it didn't need any. It was so very much the Thanos snapping moment. When he snapped, there was no talk. You just start seeing, there was words here and there.
Everything getting dusted. Yeah.
Everyone getting dusted. You knew what was happening.
You
You didn't need
Thanos
the exposition.
slowly walk over and sit down.
Yep.
Yep.
And I just watched that, and I was in absolute awe.
Same.
And Tundra Walker said, none of the Kang storylines, Immortus storylines, or time travel storylines are ever useful. They are sideshows, as this was. I mean, there's been a lot of Kang storylines that have been sideshows and silly time traveling ones. I don't think this was. I think the Loki series was phenomenal.
Oh yeah, the Loki series. I mean, the rest of these phases, 5 and 6, are going to depend on what happened on this Loki show, I think.
And
now,
even
this set it right back in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, if anything happens, we know that can't remember Kang's name, the actor, Jonathan Majors. His trial's this month. If anything does happen, they could actually pivot away from Kang based on the Loki finale. They really set themselves up good for wherever they have to go. I really hope that we do see the end of this, because I really want to see a Secret Wars movie. I think that could be, if done well, it could be bonkers. It could top Infinity War and Endgame possibly, with how crazy it could get. But
I have to ask, the sort of mention of Quantumania as like a bit of a footnote, like, oh, we think we detected He Who Remains variant, but they took care of him. Do you think that was filmed and added in after they saw how Quantumania actually performed at theaters? Or do you think that was always part of the script?
I think it was always part of the script, because they wanted to reference it. And, Carrie says Tom deserves an Emmy. 100% he does.
Yeah, he acted his ass off, especially in those last 2 shows. Just completely amazing.
My God, this whole last episode where he's essentially doing a Groundhog Day. Wow. It was so good. It was so good. And for him to have spent centuries. Now, have you guys ever seen the interview of Harold Ramis when they asked him how long Bill Murray's character spent in Groundhog Day?
It was like 10,000 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, remember, Loki spent centuries learning.
That's what we just said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now imagine even more than that. So like back then when he was like, oh yeah, 10,000 years, for him to have learned all those skills and be able to repeat that day perfectly. Now take Loki having to learn quantum physics, become an engineer, having to know so much about this process to the point where he was so calmly and so politely, now don't set it down. It'll roll off the thing if you set it down. What did I tell you, Victor? Don't set it down. Oh, right.
Yeah, he had every, because he'd done it so many times, he had every ending. He already knew what was going to happen. Just don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Still didn't work.
Well, it worked out how it was supposed to.
Yeah, it worked the way it should. Everything always ends up as it should.
And it was funny. One of the things I was thinking about too, because how do you say the tree's name again?
Yggdrasil.
Brazil.
Everyone's talking, oh, this is Yggdrasil, but think about it. Every universe would have its own Yggdrasil. So all of these Yggdrasils are making up Loki's big Yggdrasil. I can't say it. But basically,
it
of them.
It starts with a Y. Sound it out. Yggdrasil with a Y and
Yggdrasil.
2 G's.
Like Ypsilanti.
Yeah.
Yggdrasil.
Yggdrasil.
And
Sure.
egg. It's like an
Like
egg.
Iggy Pop.
Yggdrasil.
Yggdrasil.
Yggdrasil. But all of these Yggdrasils are now making up this larger Yggdrasil.
Yeah, I could see that, Keith. That does make sense. Where each branch is turning into its own tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that would make sense.
And I do think this is what I said earlier. It's going to stir up the Council of Crosstime Kings, and they're going to start popping up here more than ever.
Keith, with that theory in mind, does that mean that there are any other Loki variants that are also doing this? Or is it only this Loki that's at the center of everything?
I think it's only this Loki.
Okay.
I heard my question. When Renslayer got up, when she woke up, by the way, she was gone for a long time. I almost forgot she was on the show.
She didn't have a big role this season.
And she looks over and there's the pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now is that referencing
Ramatut?
I think so.
And if you notice, while she was
there too,
while she was sitting there, an almost blue light was approaching her, which I took as a Kang.
I was thinking the same
towards
thing.
her, and we are going to see Renslayer with a Kang variant pop up again. I don't know when, but I definitely think that a Kang knew he needed a Renslayer to help win this war, and he was recruiting the one he found.
Mm-hmm.
And that would have to take place in a movie if this is going to be the series finale.
Mm-hmm. Now, would she be willing to actually follow him and work with him?
As long as maybe not, but she may be like go with him to get out of the pruned area. But he may also say, "Listen, I'm not Victor Timely. I am not he who remains. I am not going to leave you behind. I understand your worth. We are going to work side by side." And she probably won't believe it, but they can work together at least to get somewhere. Kang has to have his downfall somewhere, and maybe it's a Ravonna Renslayer turning on him.
Now, if you could just look into this device, and great, memory wiped.
Accidentally does it on himself. Oh, who are you? Where am I?
And this was something Carrie talked about on a Instant Messenger, was about Sylvie will Sylvie be the new kind of Loki traversing around the multiverse? I hope so. And I do hope we see her kind of showing up as a Loki variant, because the one thing the Marvel Universe always needs is a Loki somehow, some way to cause mischief, if you will.
I also don't want to see the end of her character. It was nice to get introduced to her, and I don't think her story is done yet.
I don't think so either. I think we'll definitely see her, and I hope it's not just a cameo in Secret Wars of the Kang Dynasty. I hope we kind of see her making a major impact, as any Loki should.
I wonder if, she'll walk up to Thor and some of the other Avengers and just, use the same line that we got in Iron Man 2. I'm here, get over it, let's go. Oh, yeah, it's Loki, of course. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it might be slightly different.
I mean, just...
I'm here.
Did you do something different with your hair?
Okay. Yeah, I've made a few changes.
Oh, this guy.
I've been through some things.
Let me tell you. Later, though. But, honestly, I don't know when this is going to come back, because I don't know if it's going to take place in Deadpool 3, kind of the Kang storyline. I think we're going to get some TVA action, and I think we're going to have, a lot of cross dimensional fun because obviously we're going to see some X-Men and Deadpool from the Fox universe probably jumping over into the MCU timeline or other timelines. You know, there's been so many rumored cameos in Deadpool 3. I don't think they need to fit a Kang storyline in there unless it's just them saying, hey, we need to get these heroes, you know, prime heroes or something from all these different dimensions, you know, for this fight or whatever. But then we got like Captain America.
At the most, you get a Kane like cameo. That's all you could put in there.
Yeah, put a post-credit scene.
Yeah, it's just going to be a jam-packed movie. I don't even know if they can do that. You know, just like you're saying.
Could Loki the TV continue, but with Sylvie and Mobius and Renslayer? 100% it could. I didn't even think about that. But yeah, they definitely could have another Loki season and kind of have the TVA how it seems to be running now.
Mm-hmm.
And we have Sylvie, Mobius, and maybe Renslayer teaming up with whoever that was, Kang. You know, whatever Kang variant was helping her at the end of the series. I'd be down for that. I don't know if they're going to do it. They haven't announced it, but and we got no post-credit scene on this series. I was shocked.
So was I.
That would be a very interesting concept. I would kind of like to see the TVA now acting sort of like a Men in Black, you know, coming out of the shadows. We've detected some Kang interference, you know, come in, grab some dude, pull him through a time door, and everyone's like, "The fuck was just that?" Never mind.
Yeah, they no longer prune those timelines, but they do still drag people in.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, you know what? Maybe they'll have Deadpool. Because remember, at the end of Deadpool 2, he had Cable's time traveling device.
Yep.
So he may be making branches everywhere, and they may grab him. He may be a prisoner of the TVA when Deadpool
I've been sitting
we
here
know
wondering.
Mobius is in that movie.
No, he's not.
Oh, what?
What?
They've said now he's not going to be there.
Times in the past.
Yes, and now they're saying that is no longer the case. It has never been.
Really?
Yeah, it's never been
Officially
confirmed by Marvel. And now a lot of the trades are saying he won't be in it. They say Mobius could be back for like a Secret Wars type cameo or something along those lines. But and I forget who they said would be the main TVA agent. But it'll be a TVA agent. It won't be Mobius.
But there still will be a TVA reference in this Deadpool movie.
Yes.
Okay. See, now that you mentioned Cable's time travel device, I've been sitting here kind of like thinking, I don't think there's going to be any TVA in Deadpool. That'd be nice, but I forgot about that. I completely forgot about Cable's time travel device. That would make sense. You know, other than the Reddit fan theory of it would be cool. I was sitting there thinking like, I just don't get why they would be there, but that would make sense. You're right.
Yeah, and then outside of no post-credit scene, which I was really hoping to see, another like Council of Cross-Time Kangs, like, they're really pushing us now. We need to take action.
Mm-hmm.
They're just lurking in the shadows, just biding their time.
I guess they just wanted to end on a more somber note, which, you know, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
Or they wanted to make the series seem complete.
Yeah, that too.
And you can sprout a story from there, but at least the series is done.
Tie up every loose end and don't offer any more.
Yeah. And then like the characters can go their own way in a different movie, series, special, something.
You know, it's funny because I don't know if you saw Tom Hiddleston was on Jimmy Kimmel.
I did. I watched that. Yeah, it was Jimmy Kimmel.
And did you hear what he said? Where he's like, "This is the end of it. You know, it's however many movies, 2 seasons of a television show, 14 years of my life." I couldn't believe he was like, "I was 28 when this started. Now I'm 42."
And he had originally auditioned to play Thor.
Yep. And it really sounded to me.
Like if you look back at him, yes, he's aged, but you wouldn't notice he's aged as you watch these movies. But when you look back, you can tell. Yeah,
when you watch the first Thor again and see him, it's like, wow, he's young. But let me ask you, Doug, when you watched this, did it sound to you like he was basically saying, that's the last time you'll see me as Loki without actually saying it.
Yeah, that was what I took away from it. That's why I quickly kind of thought to myself, I'm like, okay, this is definitely not just a season finale, it's probably a series finale. And I don't think we're gonna see him as Loki again. I think well, he may show up, sporadically here and there as like a little flashback or just oh hey, so I wonder what Loki's doing. Oh, he's sitting in a chair kind of thing. I don't think we're going to see him in a major role again in the MCU.
You
I
don't think
agree.
he's gonna like we were discussing a minute ago in Secret Wars? You don't think he's gonna be a part of that?
See, he, like I said, he may pop up as like a cameo thing, but as like a major player, no, I don't see. Like I don't know how he's serving his purpose in that throne. I don't know what else he could do, like other than let go of the strands of time in order to make that happen. I don't think he would do that.
We
It would
may
make
only
his
get
sacrifice worthless.
yeah. They would definitely. We don't
And
want
then
to
somehow,
sacrifice to.
then we would have to, wheel out that dude from Lost and somehow Kang returned.
That
Honestly,
would
it
be
may
like
just
almost
be
like bringing Tony Stark back.
But
yeah.
see, we still don't know in what way they're bringing him back.
If they're bringing him back
Saying
once again, this has not
if
been
they bring him
confirmed.
right, like if they brought him back, like the rumors are saying, like they say they've signed him New Deal. I don't believe any of that crap, and I don't think they should. It's just like when you have a character arc that went over 20 movies
Yep,
and you complete it, you don't tarnish it by trying to bring him back.
I agree.
That'd be really dumb.
And I honestly, I only want to see Chris Evans if it's the cameo as the Human Torch from the Fantastic Four universe. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I loved Chris Evans as Captain America. Yesterday, I'm assuming because it was Veterans Day, but they had Captain America, the First Avenger, and the Winter Soldier playing on like TNT or something. And I forgot how much I loved the First Avenger. It's been a while since I watched it. And just like Tommy Lee Jones's lines in that movie just make it, and just how great Chris Evans is as Steve Rogers and the way he is, it's funny because I was telling Sully we were watching. He was sitting there watching it with me a little bit. In the scene where he's chasing the Hydra guy, and he like right after he becomes Captain America, and the guy grabs that kid and he's got like a gun to his head. Oh, and thank you, Mighty Mage, for just resubscribed. We appreciate that. But he has that kid, and then the gun's out, and he throws the kid in the water, and the kid's like, "Don't worry, I can swim. Go get him." I love that line so much. But I mean, you really would do a disservice to those character arcs, like Dave was saying,
I agree.
to bring them back just for a little cameo for Secret Wars. I'm sure they're going to though, but I would rather have a different, if they soft reboot it and it's a new Captain America, a new Iron Man, have those new characters be in Secret Wars. Kick off their role, run as that character right in Secret Wars. Don't bring back those mainstays just for probably box office. That's all they'd want to do it for.
Right. And they've aged out of those roles. If you want to make like 4 or 5 more movies with those characters, they can't do it. You know, Robert Downey Jr. would be like 70 by the time he did like three
Oh, I
more
know.
movies. So it's
The
not
last
exactly
time when he was doing the press tour for Oppenheimer, I was like, oh no, he can't come back as Iron Man. He's shown his age. What's he gonna do?
yeah.
Like have Pepper wheel him over to get in, put on his breathing mask. He's gonna be
Yeah,
like a robot and invincible.
eventually
Oh, that'd be
it
funny.
catches up to all of us, but he's got
Yeah,
to be. I think he was 54 when the Spider-Man Homecoming came out.
I think so. Yeah.
So and that's a few years ago too. So
Mm. Yeah, didn't Homecoming come out in like 2016 or 2017? Something like that.
Yeah.
somewhere in that area, yeah. So he's like got to be near 70 or 60. I mean,
Yeah.
And it's great. He did, even Carrie said, I love RDJ, but I have but I have peace with his ending. Yes, don't
Yes.
ruin
Same.
that. That arc
Yep.
was too good, ended the way it absolutely should, just like Steve
Absolutely
Rogers.
should.
Oh, yes, yes. And they don't need to change it. But
No.
I have no problems with them recasting and doing things again. Like I've said at least 100 times. I would love to see Captain America and Iron Man intermingle with the X-Men. And if they do a X-Men versus the Avengers, those characters do have to be a part of it. So we'll see. But I do worry, especially after, we'll get to the Marvels here in a little bit, after their box office, that Marvel is going to try to overcompensate for this by trying to bring back what brought them billions of dollars. And that is not the right direction to go.
The problem with it, and I don't know what's going on with Kevin Feige. It seemed like he used to have more control over things, but I think I have a similar fear as you, and I'm afraid that the studio, whether it's I'm sure there's plenty of people involved within the Marvel Cinematic Universe and within different Disney branches and everything like that, but I feel like they're going a very similar route as Warner and as Sony, and they're misunderstanding what works. And so, like, whenever we got the first Suicide Squad, and I remember we were all talking about as a Suicide Squad movie, it had potential, it should have worked, but when they were putting it together, when Warner was putting it together, they misunderstood why it should have worked. And you could tell they were trying to pull a lot of aspects from Guardians of the Galaxy, which had just come out. And they were saying, oh, well, if we put in all of these, great songs that everybody loves, whether they fit with the scene or they make any sense, it doesn't matter. And if we have a whole, just a bunch of characters, a bunch of really goofy, funny characters that people really haven't ever heard of, that's what's going to make this movie work. And they were misunderstanding why Guardians worked and what was special about that, and why their iteration, that first iteration Suicide Squad, was not going to work.
By the way, while we're speaking of WB and how they make terrible decisions, did you guys hear what they did?
No, what?
There was a movie coming out, Coyote versus Acme.
Oh, no, that's hilarious.
Yeah, it got wonderful test screenings.
Okay.
It had John Cena, James Gunn was helping produce this movie.
Oh,
I can't remember all that's in it. It got shelved for a tax break.
Oh my God, another one?
Yes. And it was funny because Scott Derrickson, who, directed the first Doctor Strange movie, he's very vocal on Twitter when stuff like this comes up. And he was like, how could any creative person want to work with WB when they are so willing to shelve any movie for a tax break?
Yeah.
When they need some cash. He's like, it sounded to me like he's basically saying, I will never work with WB ever unless Zaslav is gone and they start, because Batgirl, when they did it, I was kind of like, okay, they're worried it's not going to make good box office. I kind of understand that. I still think it was the wrong decision. You paid to have this created. You let creative people do it. Release it. Just do what you need to do. But this one, this sounds like they are making a terrible decision because everyone coming out and saying this movie, I saw it, it was hilarious, it was going to be great, I can't believe we're not getting it. And this could have been, I'm surprised they didn't shelve Barbie for a $20 million tax break when it made over $1 billion. One of its highest, it's WB's highest grossing movie. I'm shocked they didn't shelve it. We don't get it. We're just gonna take the 10 million.
There was a joke going around a little while ago saying a round of applause to Warner for Batwoman being or Batgirl being their most financially successful DC movie. It's like, oh, that's so mean.
That is cold-blooded.
I think eventually, somewhere down the line, we're gonna get that movie somewhere, through digital release or something.
I bet if there's enough, fans demanding it, it'll be like a whole Snyder Cut thing, right?
I don't think they can. I think shelving it for the tax break, they can never release it in any way. It would have to leak and never be released, so we can pay for it. It may come out and we may be able to see it, but WB cannot release it when they do this, when they pull this stunt.
Really? See, that is so dumb. I don't get that. To me, that I feel almost like that's more of a waste.
It is. It really is.
Because stuff like that I think it could have had more of a potential than whatever they may have got short term on a tax break.
Because they're missing out not only on box office, DVD sales, people watching it on streaming. I mean, you've got
merchandising.
Yep. You've got multiple revenue streams that they gave up for a little bit of cash up front.
Yep.
Terrible. But hey, any last thoughts on Loki before we give it a rating?
How about a what's next?
We kind of talked a little bit about what's next. I do think we're going to see the Kangs become more active.
Oh, I mean, but there's no what's next for Loki because that show's over.
Yeah, he'll get Thor will say something in Secret Wars about how he's proud of his brother for his sacrifice.
Will he ever know?
I don't think he'll ever know. There's no way for him to know.
I think he'll know.
Mobius going to stop by. Hey, you don't know me, but real quick, I just want to tell you about your brother.
No, he'll run
He's over there holding all
Sylvie.
those strands of time together so that nobody dies. So
Or Kang, one of the Kangs will tell him.
Well, yeah, okay. I got no other what's next.
You presented the topic and you don't have any what's next to seize?
No, it was a total joke. Like the series finale, how can you have a what's next? Is what I was saying.
Oh, I thought you meant like for the characters.
No, not at all. That's what we already talked about. What we think the character's going to do. Just sit there until somebody comes and gets him. Basically, all he can do.
I've been thinking about this, kind of going back and forth. I don't think we're going to get any sort of sequel to this series. Like, I don't think we're going to get a Mobius-centric series or a TVA-centric series.
No.
I think without the presence that Loki brought to it, it just wouldn't be as successful. And at that point, it would be like milking it, just because. So I think the next time we will, and I think we will see the TVA, but I think the next time we'll see them, they'll just be popping up here and there. There'll be little background things that happen. And I think eventually, maybe 10 or so movies from now, all of a sudden we're going to, in the movies, we're going to see a flash and it's going to come the TVA at the end of time. And you're going to hear the audience, whoop, they're clapping. Oh my God, because it's been like 16 years since we've seen this. And they're going to cart out Owen Wilson and he's going to be the new person in charge or something.
I do think we'll see the TVA pop up. Like I said, definitely I think they'll pop up in Deadpool. And we may see, until Secret Wars, we may see post-credit scenes with TVA popping in or, alerting us to something a lot like, the Eric Silvig post-credit scene when it was really Loki trying to get the Tesseract. And, we'll see things like that. But yeah, they're not getting a show. They won't have their own movie. They'll pop up here and there to kind of help out the heroes at Loki's behest. And then, we'll move on to the X-Men Mutant Saga or whatever's going to be next.
And by the way, Dave, I know that is ridiculous because Mobius retired and everything. This is, a studio. They still pull shit like this.
Well, if they do like you say and start going the Sony way, they're going to pull a lot more than just that.
Hey guys, I'm back from retirement. Wow.
Oh no. Wow.
Wow. Oh boy, the TVA sure has changed since I left. Hey, Miss Minutes.
By the way, I almost forgot. Did you see Miss Minutes' face when Loki busted in? It was like, I just need him for a moment or whatever. She was like, what is going on?
Miss Minutes, I know you're hurting. It's okay. Just need him for a minute.
She didn't take that nearly as well as He Who Remains when Loki kept popping in. God, that was great. I'm glad I remembered to mention that because I paused it. I was laughing so hard. Her look was just awesome.
Oh, that's what it was. I didn't mention it on the show. I mentioned it before the show when I was talking to Keith. During that scene where okay, Kang, he who remains, was
Mhm.
explaining to Loki, we've had this conversation 1,000 times. And if you want to go 1,000 more until you get it, we can do that. And that whole scene when Kang described why he was doing it, I'm doing it to save you and everything, and I'm putting these timelines to keep everybody safe. He became to me a Thanos type villain.
Oh yeah, he definitely
Yeah.
was.
You could see he has his proper motivations, and he really thinks he's doing it for the good of everybody.
Yeah.
Why
That
won't
made
you
him
let me
like,
save you?
yeah, he was so much deeper
Yep.
when they added that. I mean, we knew it was going there, but to have
He
that actual scene, that was
he's
pretty cool.
also very much a narcissist like Thanos, where it's not it's more than that he wants to save everybody. It's that he thinks he's the only one. Only he can save them. It's all up to him. He needs to be the one who remains. Nobody else can accomplish this. And Loki had to prove him wrong.
No one else can stop the multiversal war but me.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to go with that, Victor Timely? When
Yeah.
he made fun of his other character, I was like, oh, that's pretty funny.
That's low, man.
But all right, let's get to our ratings for Loki
Oh
season
my
2.
gosh. 10 out of 10. Easily 10 out of 10. I don't do this often, but that that was such a perfect ending. And I do not think we're going to ever get anything like that anytime soon, because I hate to say it, but a lot of times I think these studios accident their way into good endings, and then they're going to try and repeat it. They're going to fail. But while we actually got something that I truly think is worthy of a 10 out of 10, I'm going to give it away. And this will probably be my only one for the next decade.
Is it for the episode you said, or for the
For
series?
the series.
For the series, a 10 out of 10. It was perfect
Yep.
all the way through.
All the way through.
Okay. What about for the? I guess for the show, I guess it would still be a 10 out of 10 then, wouldn't
Yeah.
it?
Because the way that everything set up this end, even if you go back to episode 3 of the season, where Mobius comments, sometimes I forget that you're a god, and he points to all of the Norse gods, and you can kind of see that look on Loki's face. And then when he makes this comment at the end, I've decided what kind of god I need to be. Like, they've been setting this whole thing up. Like, this is the type of MCU planning that I miss,
Yeah, you
where
could see it all the way
everything
back into
led to
season
it.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was like it's like they wrote season 1 and 2 at the same time,
Yep.
and they had the Ouroboros, if you will.
Well, yeah, and then yes, exactly, the Ouroboros. Yes, this is not even just so. This is an Ouroboros, and it's also like what I said. This is Loki's character. This is what he's doomed to do. Loki himself in Norse mythology constantly repeats over and over again. He's the one that starts Ragnarok, and then everything rebuilds itself, and then he destroys it again.
Yeah, that's true.
And I can go next. I thought for sure you guys would mock me for giving it a 10 out of 10, but I am giving it the same as Doug. I loved everything about the first season. I loved everything about the second season. The acting was phenomenal. The writing was tremendous. Natalie Holt's score was phenomenal. I loved the Loki theme she did and all of the stuff she did, all of the changes she made for all the different eras she was in. And if you would have told me we would have got kind of a time traveling TVA story that was damn near perfect, I would have never believed it until this came out. And it's funny, Doug, because you talked about studios messing with it. I wonder if they didn't mess with this that much because it was just a Disney Plus show. They weren't worried about it. Just let them do what they're going to do. It's only a Disney Plus show. And that's why we got such a high quality. It was the writer's vision,
Because they kept their hands out of it.
Yeah. And
Probably.
I mean, so perfect. I have already gotten the, steel book for season 1.
Oh.
And I hope they come out with a steel book for season 2 because I
That'd
will
be
buy
great.
that too. I loved this show. I can't believe that we're only getting 2 seasons, but I'm happy they nailed the ending. and I couldn't be
Mhm.
happier. And we do have a
So-
couple ratings. Sorry, Dave, a few ratings out in the chat. Carrie gives it an 11 out of 10. Yes. Sierra gives it a 7 out of 10 and says they never explained the time slipping.
They did.
And Attack on
He Who Remains explained it.
Attack on Show also gives it a 10 out of 10. I mean,
Oh, that's rare for Attack on Show. Wow.
yeah.
All right.
And he even said, "I'm glad Tom Hiddleston gets a proper send out. So fitting."
Mm-hmm.
Yep, his arc was as good as Robert Downey Jr.'s, and Chris Evans as Steve Rogers, perfect.
Well,
Yep.
here's my question, guys. Previously, we've rated other episodes, and they did not get 10s out of 10s from you guys. So, being that they finished the story, does that change? It would have to change your ratings for those individual shows as well, because they were just a step along the way.
No, not
It
necessarily.
So for me, if you look at some of these episodes as they stand by themselves, I think my rating would stand. But as a complete story, where each one of these episodes is used to set up this final episode, that's what increases my rating. If I look at them as individual pieces, yeah, some of them weren't the greatest. Some of them I was kind of like, it could have been better. But as a piece of a larger picture, that's where I have to increase my rating, because now it all comes together.
And like
If that makes-
I may rate a movie.
I realize that like mathematically it doesn't make sense, but story-wise it does.
It's
So
like
this is
I rate
definitely the best MCU show for you guys.
yes,
Right now, yeah.
100%. And it's sometimes you rate a movie a 9 out of 10, but there may be a scene that you think is a 2 out of 10,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't want to see it, but it still doesn't affect the overall rating. Well, it
Right.
affects it a little bit maybe, but for the way they handled the entire series, the episodes that I didn't think was, a 10 out of 10, which I don't think I rated any a 10 out of 10, but together I think they make
Yeah, actually, I don't think I did either.
a perfect MCU show.
Mhm.
Well, I agree on one aspect. I agree that this is the best MCU show there has been. Definitely over WandaVision. The first season, when I saw it, I thought, 7, 6, 6 or 7 out of 10, because I don't even know if that's what I rated it back then, but I wasn't really over that impressed with it as everybody else was. But now that I see the whole story as a whole, and remember earlier in the season when we were talking about, like, he doesn't seem like himself. He doesn't seem like the real Loki.
Yeah,
And they
yeah.
say, well, zoom out, because Loki,
Yep.
you won't know what Loki's doing until he's done doing it. And now that we've seen what he's done and what he's done doing it, I don't think I would give it a perfect score like you guys, but I think I'll give it a 8.5 out of 10
Okay.
overall, because for me, a 10 is you'd have to want to rewatch every minute of it to catch every little thing. I'm
Mhm.
not there. I don't want to do that. I did really enjoy this episode. I really thought it pulled everything together. Without this episode, I couldn't rate this as high as I am right now.
Okay.
Carrie
See,
said
I'm-
blasphemy in the chat, Dave.
Who is?
Carrie.
I'm
can't read
Oh, sorry.
I'm thinking of this sort of like in a very similar way, but like I do see myself rewatching it. And I've gone back, I've told you guys this, I've gone back and I've rewatched Andor a couple of times because I was just so blown away with that series, and it's so good as one continuous piece. The very first episode of Andor, bits and pieces of it, not great. But thankfully when that first dropped, we got I think like 2 or 3 episodes all in one go initially. But
Yeah.
if we had only seen that first episode by itself, I probably would have given it a low rating and would have said, this one isn't that great. But then on a large scale, the whole picture, Andor was fantastic. That's how I view Loki. There's a couple of like slow moments in Loki where it's like, not that great. But as a larger picture, fantastic. So good.
And that's what I
And-
thought when you guys said 10 too, because I immediately thought Andor, and then I thought, okay, is this as good as Andor? And
I feel like it is.
I do too.
I don't think it is.
And that's
Not in
fine.
my opinion.
And
I
bad,
know it's fine.
And Bad Coyote Funky says, love to see Tom knock it out of the park. Acting wise, he and Owen Wilson are a fantastic duo. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I did
Yep.
not, when they first hired Owen Wilson, I was a little worried about it, but man, those two banter and working together, I couldn't ask for anything better. Now we were all kind of rating it to Bad Coyote Funky. What do you rate Loki as a series?
And while you were coming up with your rating, he also asked, "Can you explain the ending?" I honestly didn't get it. He's the new He Who Remains. Yeah. So as we kind of theorized and as I show, so when he's walking, grabbing each one of the strands of the timeline, you can see the throne building itself up, and he's putting on his old Loki costume, and he's becoming the god that he needs to be, as he said as he was walking out on the thing.
Yeah, he's
So yes,
basically
he's essentially the new He Who Remains, but I think he's sacrificing more
More like
rather
a
than
job title at
pruning,
that point.
rather than using fear and pruning the timelines. He's holding all of them together, and he formed Yggdrasil, the World Tree.
yeah, he's basically using his magic because we remember all those timelines were supposed to die when the loom exploded, and he was saving them with his magic, and he's basically keeping it all together. And I'm sure we might find out that he's probably helping the TVA monitor for any potential dangerous Kangs that are popping up, but they're going to probably pop up a little too fast for them to handle. But hey,
And
that-
Carrie says, "I don't even think I finished Andor." Aw.
Well, you should. It's a very good show, and
I
just
don't think she's watched a whole lot of Star Wars, though.
oh yeah, is she into Star Wars?
I don't think
That will
so.
affect it.
she's been
not,
waiting.
then.
She's been waiting for Rebel Moon. She's going to
Oh
be.
boy.
Oh God.
Let's see. Bad Coyote Funky. Is he an alternate timeline? He seemed to open a tear in space time, or is that still our timeline? Well, remember, this Loki isn't from the sacred timeline. This Loki is from when he jumped out from Endgame. And so, no, I don't think and he did tear open space time a little bit. And instead of pruning all of those timelines and kind of keeping the multiverse just to the sacred timeline, he's opened it up to all of these alternate timelines.
He himself, he's not on any timeline. He's holding all the timelines together. He's actually sitting outside of time and space, holding it all together. And he's at the center of it all.
Yep.
Kind of like the TVA sort of existed outside of the timeline at the end of time.
Time works differently here in the TVA.
Yep.
As in, it doesn't exist.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably all we got for Loki.
I think so.
Oh, here, no, actually, in the entire series, what were your standout moments? Well, honestly, I think the number one moment was the end. Seeing
Yep.
that with Natalie Holt's score, without any words, just seeing it all come together.
I would say Miss Minutes gleefully looking on as her victims were being crushed to death, and just watching the joy on her face was the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. And so I've decided that we need to kill all AI.
Even the way they handled all of the time jumping, time slipping, time travel events, I thought the writing handled it very well.
Yep.
There's nowhere where I was like, okay, that doesn't really make sense. I mean, I'm sure there's things you could point out that weren't perfect, but I think overall they handled a very complex writing style. They handled it well, and they made it accessible to a lot of people. I thought even at the beginning, hearing, them explaining the multiversal war to Loki and seeing him and his entire character development on that first season, from finding out that he's basically always failing and this is going to happen, to what he became, and even seeing all the variant Lokis at the end of time when they were getting pruned, Kid Loki, Classic Loki, and seeing Classic Loki use his magic to kind of ward off Aeoloth so they could get to the Citadel at the end of time.
That was pretty badass.
another wonderful moment. And even seeing when the elevator opened and we see Jonathan Majors as He Who Remains, you know, we were pretty sure that he was going to show up, but you're never positive until that. And when the doors opened and it was him, I was just like, yes, thank God, because I thought, you know, his acting as Victor Timely as He Who Remains was as good as, you know, we've seen in the MCU. I thought he just did a tremendous job.
Yeah. Oh man. All of the little Easter eggs as we were in the Purge Land, just like seeing like the little frog Thor in a jar trying to hop after the little mini Mjolnir, the ecto cooler that Kid Loki was drinking, watching the gang of other Lokis like turn on each other because that's what Loki does.
The Zaniac video game.
Yes. Oh, the Zaniac video game was great. Oh man, good little Easter egg. Oh man, there's so many good things that I could say that I really enjoyed about this show. Just the what you brought up earlier, the Sif part where he was constantly reliving the worst moment in his life, and it's like even when he tried to change it, like Sif, yes, I know we've been through this. He couldn't escape it.
Who was your favorite character in this series, and what moment solidified them as your favorite? I think solidifying it was the
We're being
finale.
interviewed.
Yeah.
I love
Yes,
it.
I know, me
We're
too.
celebrities. We're getting interviewed. I didn't even mean to interrupt your answer. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, Loki throughout was obviously my favorite, but what solidified it was the end scene when he sacrificed everything for his friends, which that is a huge change from where we saw him in Avengers and the first Thor. I mean, I thought the way they handled his character arc was perfection. I thought Tom Hiddleston's acting was on par, and I think the writing was perfect. And just watching that final scene solidified it for me.
Yeah, it's like they had his character arc planned out from the beginning. The way they wrapped it up, it seemed like they had that planned out, which they obviously didn't. So this was some damn good writing on this show. And obviously it was done before the writer's strike. They got some good writing and they redeemed his character and he started off mischievous, I guess you would say.
hmm
And he finishes up at the end just sacrificing it all for everybody. That's what other character arc can you ask for?
I think it was
Redemption.
perfect. I think that it was the perfect arc, and I think that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Redeemed.
Yes.
Carrie said
yes.
they had a great ensemble.
Mhm.
That is absolutely true.
Absolutely true.
Absolutely.
And Dinky Man Soul says Bill Cipher versus Miss Minutes. Who will win? Let's find out. Sounds good. We will definitely watch out for that, buddy. And then now that the show is wrapped, let's say we have a Loki season 3. What would you like to see moving forward? I don't think we're getting a season 3, but if we did, obviously I think we see Sylvie and we see B-15 and we kind of just more time hijinks because I don't think there's really more story to tell with the TVA. So I definitely don't think we'll get a season 3. We kind of were talking earlier, they'll pop up here and there throughout the multiversal saga, either offering help or needing something or kind of used as a plot device to move things forward.
Sierra had mentioned, I don't know if she's still here, but she mentioned earlier in a few weeks ago that the show had the wrong name. She doesn't know why they called it Loki because it seems to be focused on everything else. I think in these last 2 episodes, it really became Loki,
Yes.
And he really, just as an actor, he was just the main, obviously he was the main character in the last few episodes, but he just acted his ass off.
And
that
in
character
defense of that,
so
I will
much.
say, we've seen this and we've commented on this in other TV shows and movies, but sometimes, and The Boys is a good example. Sometimes you need to take a moment and build your world before you can come back and finish building your main character. Sometimes it's necessary. You've got to have a good, healthy balance of both character building and world building. Some of the best directors are able to handle both. Like we were saying before, that George Lucas, not great at that. He can world build, not great at character building.
Or dialogue.
Yeah.
Yeah, or dialogue.
Terrible at dialogue.
Oh God, the worst. And if it hadn't been for, animated series like the Clone Wars to flesh out some of his characters,
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think?
An excellent world builder. So
where do you think we'll see this Loki again? Well, we did kind of talk about this earlier. I don't know if we do. Tom Hiddleston had talked about this kind of wrapping it up and the final chapter of this character, 14 years in the making. If we do, I only think it'll be in like Secret Wars, and he will be, using off his power to kind of hold the multiverse together while Kang or the Beyonder or Doctor Doom is trying to tear it apart. But other than that, I don't think we really see this Loki again, which is heartbreaking.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, yeah, considering we're going to get some more Thor. And I don't know if you guys read this, but Chris Hemsworth he came out and said he hopes that they go in some different direction with Thor instead of the goofy Thor from now on.
I think it needs to be similar to Ragnarok, maybe tone it down a bit. But I think the way that they did things in Ragnarok and also in Endgame, I think that was probably the best type of Thor that we got. Where
Endgame or Infinity War?
In Endgame,
the Infinity War Thor kicks some steer's tail.
Yeah, but Endgame brought us where he had to actually confront himself and had to deal with, the fact that he had lost his mother and that he had essentially not stopped Thanos. I liked that. I thought it was nice to sort of give us a side of Thor that we wouldn't normally see, where he's a guy. It was sort of like Loki's character development. We got that for Thor, and it was nice. So I think those were my favorite instances of Thor, where he had just a smidge of goofiness, but it was like a nice coating over seriousness. I think that was probably the best type of Thor that we could ask for. So yeah, I wouldn't want another Love and Thunder version. That was too far off the deep end for the silliness, and I think they needed to kind of, if you don't mind me borrowing this, Dave, they needed to reel it in just a little bit.
And honestly, I hope, with the Marvels, and we'll get to talking about that in a minute. I know you guys didn't like some of the silly scenes in there, but they didn't even go as far as Thor: Love and Thunder did. Was like, we've talked about this a lot. I mean, the whole Mjolnir being jealous of Stormbreaker was just way too much. I don't mind jokes in superhero movies, but they were starting to really stretch too far with the goofiness. And I know a lot of people probably didn't like the Flurkin scene in the Marvels, which was kind of that way. And I don't know if this is going to be a wake up to kind of Marvel Studios to maybe go back to, there's jokes and you can have funny in it, but maybe stay away from the overly goofiness of it all.
Yeah, I don't think they will realize it, but here's hoping.
Yeah, no, I agree. Oh, and Bad Coyote Funky, and this I agree with this wholeheartedly. Taika Waititi is fantastic when he works on his own projects. I just saw his latest Next Goal Wins, loved it, but I very much disliked Love and Thunder. He does oh my God, why can't I think of the movie about Hitler with Scarlett Johansson?
Jojo Rabbit.
Jojo Rabbit, yeah.
Jojo
Good
Rabbit
movie.
was tremendous.
Oh, yeah.
He did such a good job on that. And I mean, when he has his own stuff, he does great. I've loved him on the pirate show on
Our
HBO.
Flag Means Death.
Yes, Our Flag Means Death. I thought he's been great in that. I haven't seen Next Go Wins, but I do want to see it. And while I didn't hate Love and Thunder, I thought it had some good moments, especially Christian Bale. I still feel robbed of Christian Bale as Gore in a more serious movie. That would have been so much better.
So much better.
Yeah,
because we know what kind of actor Christian Bale is and how much range he has, and they kind of robbed him of that in putting him in such a silly movie. And he acted his ass off.
He was such a side character in that movie. Looking back at it, he's just like, we're gonna do all this goofy stuff, and every once in a while we want to throw Christian Bale in to realize there's a villain in there.
Yeah, and
And
that
And
gore was a whole different movie within that comedy Yuckfest.
And as Keith mentioned during our breakdown and review of the movie, I think it was in our spoiler review of the movie, if you want to go back and double check. But Keith had mentioned, they took the opportunity to introduce the Necro Sword, which it's so fantastic the way that it's explained in the comics, and they wasted it. They wasted the Necro Sword. It barely showed up. It was sort of like a lingering threat, but we didn't really feel it that much.
yeah, there's a side note. It
Right,
was a
because it was
side.
more like they talked about it rather than showing really what it could do. Like we saw it, I think, once or twice. Like, but then we more heard about like Thor, like, oh, hey, he's using the Necro Sword, he's killing gods, and then the God world, they're all like, oh no, it sucks. Okay,
And yes, the Necro Sword is an artifact from the symbiote god Null.
yep. And they decide. I'm assuming they couldn't say that because of Sony contract and everything. I'm guessing that's why they couldn't mention that, but still, they could have done much more with it. Hey fellow nerds, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of this stuff, make sure that you check out our Twitch stream. We try to do these live Sunday or Monday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Keep an eye on our social media to find out when you can join in live and chat with us during these live streams. Also, as usual, don't forget to check out our other social media. Add us at Twitter, comment down below, and we'll see you next time right here on Not Your Status Quo.